Hey guys, Nintendrew here. Let's talk repros. It's no secret that NES and Super Nintendo repros have been out in the wild for a really long time. And there have been rumors about Nintendo 64 reproduction cartridges for a couple of years, but they've really just started ramping up in the past few months. And I'm here to show you one today. This is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest, which was never released on Nintendo 64. And it's on a cartridge, and it works on real Nintendo 64 hardware. So this is good for a couple reasons and not so good for some others. So it's great that things like this are possible, and we might be able to see in the coming months. We might see Super Mario 64 ROM hacks or translations for Sin and Punishment or Animal Crossing on a real cartridge, which would be awesome. But it also means that there are some fake cartridges out there for some more high-ticket games like Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut or Bomberman 64: The Second Attack. So today I'm going to show you a little bit of gameplay from this cartridge on a real Nintendo 64, and we're going to take a look, pop it open, and see what sort of differences we can see between this and a real Nintendo 64 cartridge. Let's take a look. Alright, so here is some footage from my Nintendo 64. This is the Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest cartridge working on a real Nintendo 64. And I'm just going to have some gameplay here behind this commentary. I do want to make a quick shout out to John Riggs on YouTube. He's got some tutorials on NES, Super Nintendo, and I think Genesis reproduction cartridges. He's got an amazing channel with some great content. If you're interested in this sort of thing, that's definitely a place I would look. He's got some how-to videos and just generally some really cool content. So definitely go check him out if you have the time. So like I mentioned, NES and Super Nintendo reproductions have been out in the wild for a really long time. And Nintendo 64 repros are just kind of popping up more recently. And the question on everyone's mind is, why is that the case? And the reason is that it comes down to a difference in memory. So the NES and Super Nintendo used flash ROM memory. And what this means is that there's a little chip inside the cartridge that contains the entire game. So that means they have the entire game on one piece of the hardware. For Nintendo 64 games, they use masked ROM memory. And what this means is the manufacturer of the circuit board actually imprints the game into the hardware. So it's not, it's not stored on a chip that we can easily reprogram. So original Nintendo 64 cartridges can't be reprogrammed to have new ROMs. And it's not as easy as popping out a chip and swapping in a new one. So recently some pretty clever people have reverse engineered the Nintendo 64 board and are building new custom boards to support reproduction cartridges. And this is why this has taken so long to get Nintendo 64 repros, is because the hardware had such a big jump from NES and Super Nintendo. Alright, so now that we've taken a look at some gameplay from this Master Quest cartridge, I'm going to compare it with a real cartridge, and today I'm just going to use an original Zelda Ocarina of Time cartridge and see what sort of differences we can find both on the outside, and I'm going to pop them open and see what sort of differences we can see on the board. So yeah, at first glance, this reproduction cartridge looks fairly identical to the real thing, and I mean, of course, other than the difference that I'm using an Ocarina of Time cartridge as the comparison to this Master Quest cartridge. But as far as the molding and the color of the plastic, it all looks pretty much spot on. It feels a little different in your hands. It's about the same weight, but the plastic itself feels, I don't know, almost a bit less smooth than the original, but they do both have that sort of like grainy plastic texture. So at first glance it's very hard to tell the difference. On original Nintendo 64 cartridges you'll have a little number imprint here, so this one says 01B. And that just indicated what batch or what production facility they came through, and the reproduction cartridges I have seen do not have that number. Now granted, that's easy to fake, so that might not be true in the future, but that's a little thing. What's more of a clear difference though here is the Nintendo logo at the top of the cartridge. So this is the genuine cartridge. It has just the Nintendo logo that you would expect. But if you look at the reproduction cartridge, and I'm going to try to get this in the same shot here, it's just a little bit rougher, especially if you look at that E there in the middle. It's just kind of messed up, I don't think they're using exactly the same font, and also if you look at the I there, the dot on the I, on the genuine cartridge it's a square or a rectangle, but on the reproduction it's more of an oval. The other thing I noticed here is on the legitimate cartridge, if you look at the copyright symbol, and these other symbols here, I'm not sure what those are for, but they, on the original cartridge, the copyright looks a lot cleaner and clearer than on the reproduction cartridge. It looks like they just took like a really bit crushed image for the copyright and legal symbols here on the reproduction cartridge, but on the original it's very crisp and clean. So that's just another little difference that I noticed. Those are some little things to look out for. Other than that, there's not much on the outside of the cartridge to look for. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this thing open, compare it to the real thing, and see what we can find. And I'm just using a 3.8mm game bit screwdriver to do this. I've talked about those before. You can find them on Amazon or eBay or anywhere you can buy stuff online. You can find the game bit screwdriver. And it is definitely a good investment if you are into Nintendo 64 collecting, to make sure that you're getting a legitimate copy. Alright, so again we've got the legitimate Ocarina of Time cartridge on the left and the reproduction Master Quest cartridge on the right. And at first glance, obviously the metal shielding here is a lot bigger on the original cartridge. That's because the original board is bigger. Although this is not uncommon to see on a real cartridge as well, the smaller shielding, because there are some smaller chips. So that's not a really good indication of a legitimate cartridge. Although one thing I did notice here that's kind of interesting is that there are no screws on the metal shielding in this reproduction cartridge. I don't know if that's just mine or if that's a common thing because it's, you know, cheaper to produce that way. But anyway, that's just something I noticed. I'm going to take these shields off and see what's underneath. Okay, so here are the boards side by side. We've got the original here and the reproduction here. So the easiest giveaway for me is, of course, on the original board you will have a copyright notice from Nintendo, 1997. Of course, it'll vary based on which game you're checking out, but you will not see that Nintendo copyright on a reproduction board because, I mean, I assume that they don't go to the trouble of recreating that because they're assuming people aren't going to open it up and try to see whether or not it's a real cartridge. So, of course, the board is bigger, but like I mentioned, that can just happen from game to game. But the clearest differences to me are the Nintendo copyright, as well as a couple other references to Nintendo on the board, on this chip here and a couple other places. But this new board, what's crazy to me about this, and I didn't actually expect this until I just opened it right now, which is that it does not contain a Nintendo 64 CIC lockout chip, which on this original board is right here in the corner. And that chip is basically just a kind of handshake chip that will tell the system that it's a legitimate cartridge that can play the game. And I guess somehow the guys who produced this cartridge, this new cartridge, were able to reverse engineer that chip and included it on the board. So I have seen some pictures from reproduction cartridges that do have an original Nintendo CIC chip. So if you see that on the board, still check around, see what it looks like, compare it to images of the original board online to make sure that you've got yourself a legitimate copy, because I do know that some reproduction cartridges will use a donor cartridge for that CIC chip. But otherwise, it's a totally unique board that I have not seen anything like this before, so it's pretty crazy that they were able to reverse engineer the whole thing and just sort of program the entire game onto a new piece of hardware. So I'm just going to show a couple more images here of the reproduction board so that you guys have that for reference, and I think that's about it. Alright, that's about it for me. What do you guys think? Are you excited about the possibility of Nintendo 64 repros, or are you a little bit more worried about bootleg cartridges showing up in the second-hand market? Let me know down in the comments below, and otherwise I'll see you guys next time. Bye!